Hello, everybody. Andrew Field here. I'm sure you've already heard the news today, but in case you haven't, incredibly breaking news: Joe Biden is officially no longer running for president in 2024. He announced he is dropping out of the campaign. He was the presumptive Democratic nominee for 2024, set to be the candidate competing against Trump to um, try and win re-election. But today he finally changed his mind. Um, if you guys saw my last video, you know that I was advocating for him to step down, and I'm glad that he did. You know, I think Biden was a pretty good president overall. I don't approve of some of the things he did, like supporting Israel against Gaza, but overall, I think he was a pretty good president. He did some major things, um, including the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the COVID relief package that he got passed, and getting us out of the pandemic, um, working on a gun reform legislation, which seemed almost impossible. There were some major accomplishments, all the jobs that he created coming out of the pandemic. I think, like I said, I think he did pretty good job overall. All the progress he did with climate change. You know, I just thinking about it, I feel like a part of me thinks it would have been better had he just not seeked election. We all know the stakes were really high, especially with Trump being the Republican nominee for the third election cycle in a row. Um, he's a convicted felon who's just trying to be president, so he won't be um, criminally arrested and sent to jail. He's trying to become president so he can pardon himself. It's very obvious, but somehow he's convinced his base still with everything else that he's a hero and he's been nominated once again. Um, you know, I it's hard to imagine why so many people still support him for president, but it is what it is. Um, that it reminds me, in case you didn't see the news recently, Donald Trump did survive a political assassination attempt. This was at one of his rallies in Pennsylvania, where a 20-year-old gunman was somehow able to get access to a rooftop near the event and shot Donald Trump. Donald Trump is okay. Um, like I said, he still is their nominee, and he still is okay, thankfully. Um, the crazy details emerged after um, the shooting took place, where it showed Donald Trump moved his head soon before, where if he didn't move his head, he might have gotten killed. But he moved his head, and so it ricocheted off the top of his ear. But the gunman was killed. Unfortunately, there was a bystander who got killed as well, along with the gunman. So prayers to their family, to his family. It's really unfortunate, but it's good that um, Trump survived and is okay. He has since recovered, and it's just it was seeing that made me really worried that there would be political violence, retaliation, but thankfully there was not. Um, Most likely because Trump wasn't majorly injured and was okay. But it just shows the times that we're in, times where we can't talk about politics publicly most of the time, and how divisive things are. But assassination attempt on the Republican nominee, that just shows how divisive and scary times we're really in. Um, so wanted to tell you about that, obviously, but back to the details about this. So Joe Biden, after the debate, which I already have talked about, where he failed tremendously, I've ever since then the calls for him to drop out was growing over time. He was defiant. He was reportedly angry of people turning their back on him. But over time, there was more prominent people that were talking about wanting him to withdraw from the race. Um, Over time, accumulated over 30 members of Congress called for him to step down and not seek re-election. Some big names. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi was a big advocate for him to step down. The polls and data were coming out showing a lot of people like myself were, um, you know, who are Democrats. Even, I voted for him in 2020. I'm glad that I did to keep Trump out of office. Like I said, I think overall he had a pretty good presidency, but, I was not ready to vote for him again. And I think a lot of Americans and a lot of Democrats were at that point after the debate. Um, and the data was coming out, how it was harder and harder to see him winning in 2024, even against Trump. And so thankfully he stepped aside. They would be after that, after all the congressmen and women who called for him to step aside, and there were also a lot of major Democratic donors who were refusing to donate to the campaign as long as he was the nominee. So today he put out a statement because he got diagnosed with COVID-19, so he's been self-isolating in his home. So he is not in the White House; he's at his house, and he's still recovering from COVID-19. And I do hope he has a speedy recovery. Um, Meanwhile, the RNC happened where they nominated Trump as a nominee, and I didn't watch it just because I knew it would be a bunch of propaganda and a lot of lies, which there were. I saw after the fact as it was reported. And actually, there's more breaking news. I almost forgot to mention that Donald Trump finally announced his vice president candidate, which would be J.D. Vance, who is a Republican senator from Ohio. He's young. He's only 39 years old, if I believe, but he is someone who criticized Trump at one point and now is his lapdog, and is pretty extreme. No, very extreme, I should say, with a lot of his different policies. And obviously, that came out soon after he was endorsed as Trump's vice president candidate. Um, it makes sense. Of course, he's going to pick someone to be extreme like him. So, pretty crazy stuff. There was also Donald Trump Jr., who called his 17-year-old daughter sexy. Just, that family is just really messed up. I had to put that out there because I saw that clip that was trending and that was disgusting. Um, but yeah, with Joe Biden, I personally think it would have been best if he did not seek re-election from the get-go, and not push back so much from the debate because we're only 4 months away from election day, and you know it's a lot more difficult now. It's hard now. We like I said, 4 months before the election and the presumptive nominee dropping out. That is tough. Um, I think it was selfish of him to stay in as long as he did, but I think that he seems to be a good person, and I'm glad that, as the walls were closing in, it's not like, there were no issues, like I said, between the donors, the polling data that was coming out, the many Democrats in Congress, and just from the American people who were saying they didn't want to reelect him. I'm very thankful that he did step aside. I don't think there was a chance. I think there was a very slim chance that the Democrats and Joe Biden would win in 2024. But now I think we have a better chance. And when I say we, I mean the people who want democracy to stay, because if Trump gets elected, our democracy will fall. You can choose to believe that or you don't, but he's wanted to be a dictator. He always wanted to be a dictator. He almost overturned an election. He still says that he won that election. He hasn't conceded defeat almost 4 years after he lost a free and fair election in 2020. And he's already said that if he becomes president again, he will seek retribution against his political opponents. That is something that Putin would do. That is something that Kim Jong Un would do. That is not what an American president should do. If you don't know that Trump would be a dictator in day one, then you are either not following politics and you are most likely under a rock because it's very obvious that's what he wants to do. And I don't see our democracy lasting. So, you know, a lot of times people say during the recent election cycles, like this is the most important election of our time. I really do think that is the case. If Trump loses this time, he will not run again. He will most likely go to prison before he gets a chance to run again, and our country will be safe and still a democracy if a Democrat gets in office. So, that being said, I support Kamala Harris. I think I like a lot of Democrats right now think our best path forward is Kamala Harris being the nominee. Um, Frankly, there isn't time to debate between 4 or 5 challengers. That would destroy us. That would leave us with no opportunity to win. But more than that, I think Kamala Harris is qualified. She was the district attorney in California, um, where she was a well renowned prosecutor and also was a member of the Senate, um, which gives extreme qualifications as well. And, now being the vice president, the first female black vice president in the United States history, now seems to be posed to be the first ever woman president. She's going to face a lot of sexism, a lot of racism, especially if she does become the nominee. Um, it's the dark side of America. It's the ugly evil that is there, but we need to overcome that as a country. Um, I'm excited about who she would pick as her vice president. I've seen people talk about Pete Buttigieg as a possible vice president. I don't think it's honestly a winning ticket. I don't have a lot against Pete Buttigieg, but I don't think the American people would go for that as much as someone else as vice president. I think there's a lot of great candidates that she can choose from. But, you know, if people are already saying a great slogan of, for a convicted felon, who would be better to beat a convicted felon than a prosecutor? Now, that's a really great line. And, I was very upset that I was thinking I probably wouldn't vote in this upcoming election, or I would just write in a name. But now with Kamala seeming to be the next Democratic nominee and excited about who she's going to choose as a running mate, it makes it a lot more exciting. And, I think it makes it a lot more exciting for my generation, especially. Um, it's just it's been tough, a tough couple election cycles for everyone. But I just feel like for our generation, we just want to look forward at the future. And if it was harder to see that, but now I feel like it's just the future looks brighter. There's more hope now that we have a much younger candidate running for office. Um, and yeah, like I said, I'm excited. I was very happy to see the news today, and I'm glad to see a lot of Democrats supporting her, and I hope that more continue to do so because, like I said, not only would the Democrats not have a chance if many people tried to throw their hats in the ring right now, but I just think Kamala Harris can defeat Donald Trump. I think she's a great candidate, and yeah, I'm hoping the best for her and that the Democratic Party can unite like we united around Joe Biden in 2020 when there was a lot of challengers. So, very historic times we're living in. The past 2 weeks, like I said, there was an assassination attempt against Trump. Trump chose his vice president, and Joe Biden dropped out of the race, which, by the way, I almost forgot to mention, the last time a president did not seek re-election was, I believe the year was 1968 with Lyndon B. Johnson. So it's been over 50 years since a president has not sought to run re-election. So that's a crazy stat for you. And that is all the information I have for you. Please share your thoughts about this, as long as you're not going to be racist or sexist, because I want to hear what you have to say about it. I'm sure there was a lot of range of emotions for Democrats, but it'll be very interesting times. And like I said, a lot of interesting discussions, but I'm just excited to where we go from here. So thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and take care.